the Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast, the official podcast of Football Italia. I'm Carlo Gargnesi, joined as always by Nima Tavali. On today's show, we will review the weekend Serie A matches. Napoli beat Juventus in a huge boost for their Scudetto hopes and a huge blow for Juve's top four chances. Milan capitalised after an incredible injury time comeback win over Parma. But the comeback was overshadowed by incredible scenes at full time as manager Sergio Conceicao and captain Davide Calabria had to be dragged apart by players. It was incredible to see. Inter, though, thrashed Lecce, while Atalanta's Mateo Retegui continues his stunning recent form against Como. Roma finally win away from home, while in the evening game on Sunday, Lazio lose at home to Fiorentina, who return into the top four reckoning. We'll also preview the midweek Champions League and Europa League matches, the final match day of the league phase, and we'll have our usual Baggio, Premface and Serie ASS of the week, and there's some quite incredible Serie ASS of the week. For all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode that we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend Serie A action, all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all of our content that we do throughout the week, including a weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction, and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $2.99 a month plus VAT. You can also sign up to be a paid subscriber on Spotify. And for all of you who listen on Spotify, Apple, and iTunes podcasts, we'd really appreciate if you give us a 5-star rating. We're also on YouTube, and you can actually also now become a patron on YouTube via YouTube memberships. Go to our YouTube channel on youtube.com/@itafootpod for more details. Okay, let's get into today's show. So we'll start off with the big match in Naples from Saturday evening. Napoli against Juventus. Napoli win 2-1 in a fantastic second half performance from Napoli, and most importantly for Napoli, this is a huge win for their hopes of winning the Scudetto this season. In consecutive weeks, they've beaten Atalanta and now Juve. They're on 7 straight wins. And I would argue, Nima, that if Napoli beat Roma next week, they would have got rid of 3 of their really tough games for the second half of the season. I could argue that maybe that makes Napoli Scudetto favourites. What do you think?
I think it's too soon to make them favourites. I think what is important is that they continue to win. And they continue to win, not the way they did before Christmas, where people correctly were criticizing them for, this isn't sustainable. This is very sustainable. They dominate teams. They just manhandle them. That second half, Napoli were just the way that if you compare the first half to the second half, Napoli comes out and just do everything they do quicker, with more intensity, at a higher rhythm. The pressing was cohesive and fast, and it happened at a much higher tempo, and Juventus didn't know what hit them, and they couldn't recover. They just outran, outfought, and Conte outthought Juve. It was wonderful to see how Lobotka dropped down in defense, with Rahmani and Juan Jesus going wider, and then Di Lorenzo and Spinazzola stretching the pitch, Politano, Neres somewhere in the middle between wide and the centre, and again the dance in midfield with Anguissa running for 3 people in the middle, and Scott McTominay linking up with Lukaku, who was... that equalizer is all Lukaku for me, because the way that he holds off 3-4, draws attention from and wins the battle from 3-4 Juventus defenders, is how that space is created for Anguissa to equalize. And then they just kept on drumming. They just kept on going. It was like they put Juve through the ringer, and just relentlessly. systematically. And again, we see a Napoli that goes a goal down, but it doesn't faze them. It doesn't bother them. It has absolutely no impact on them. They know what they need to do. They know who they are. They believe in themselves, and they just do everything they do, but at a higher tempo, and turn the screws on. And that's another thing at this point in the season, usually with Conte teams, and this is what I meant when I said before Christmas that, well, let's wait, because after Christmas is usually when Conte teams kick in. It's the physicality. They look fresher than everybody else, and it's not strange that they look and they are fresher physically than everyone else, given that they only play once a week. They only got the Serie A. But the fact that Conte is continues to be able to keep his squad fresh mentally and physically at this decisive moment in the season is why he has twice before, when playing once a week, won the league in the Premier League and the Serie A. And it was just fantastic. They just dominated Juve. It was
The second
truly,
half was
truly,
brilliant. They were possessed second half. I mean, first half will come to Juve after. Juventus were the better team
for
tactically,
sure.
technically, and physically. All three areas, they were the better team in the first half. The second half, Napoli. There was only one team on the pitch in the
Mm.
second half, and yeah, that physical aspect definitely plays into it. Although I want to look at the other things that went wrong for Juve when we talk about Juve, but. Maybe Juve did start to tire in the second half because they played in midweek, and I'm sure that is part of it, and that's why Napoli do have such a big advantage, because they had a week to prepare for this game, and the physical difference in the second half. I mean, it was so apparent. But also, and this comes down to Conte, and the praise that we have to give Conte is that whatever Conte said at half time, this is what makes him so special. He's able to get a response out of his players. They didn't play particularly well in the first half, and he is. I mean, everything that he said and his players said after the game is the way that they're all fighting for him. You can imagine what he said to them at half time. You've got to go out there. You got to want, if you want to win, you got to fight. You got to run. You got to win every duel. You got to, and that's exactly what they did in the second half. And look at Conte's quotes after the game. He even used the word leader. Whoever is a leader must do the most with what he has. I have a group of guys who follow me blindly and believe in work. They have grown exponentially. Not everything comes by divine grace, but with work. The others are more beautiful and fragrant. We play European football. So, it shows that, that is what he is demanding from his players. And Spinazzola says, with Mr. Conte, there is never a day of rest or recovery. He makes us run and go at our best always. And I love this quote: the day we run the least is the day of the match. When we have fun. I love that quote. That's beautiful. Like their day off is the match. It's brilliant. I think that, listen, what Conte is getting out of it, and this is the difference also between him and Thiago Motta, and this is a criticism of Motta. Like with Motta, I don't want to become the whole English journalist here, that the person that shouts the most on the touchline is the better manager, because that's kind of the English way of thinking. But there is some element of truth there. Like, look at the difference between the manager. Look at the way that Conte, like Inzaghi, rants and raves and he demands, and Conte so demands, and that gets the players play with life because they respond to that. And that's what a leader does. And with Motta, he's all calm and collective, even when they're 2-1 down, and he can't get a response out of his players, partly because of that. I mean, listen, that's a basic way of looking at things, but you can see that this Conte, he gets everything. And okay, it's not sustainable, and it's why his teams, after 2 years, 3 years, usually fall apart, because it's exhausting. But for those first 2 or 3 seasons, I mean, he gets the best out of them, and that's
I think
exactly
if
what.
he, and the thing that he does is how he gets the best out of those who are not even starters. Like if you look at Cholito Simeone, when he came on, he was he was foaming at the mouth. He was on the floor, crawling like a dog, throwing head first towards the ball that was being kicked by Gatti. I mean, it was just,
Well,
he
did
was
you
going
see
to,
Billy Gilmore at the
yeah,
end
they were all
fighting?
going to
Billy
die.
Gilmore's played about an average of 30 seconds this season per
Mm.
game. Billy Gilmore, who in the injury time is fighting with McKennie, and then at the full time you see You see Philip Billing has even played a minute since he's come, and he's celebrating wildly that they've won. I mean, this
He
is
creates.
this is
He's a
this is the
master at
togetherness
creating.
and team spirit that Conte creates, and it's
He's
so, this is what wins you, titles and wins you
he
games.
creates a group like
Mm.
few do in football. He has this ability to create a unit, a team spirit, where everyone gives everything for the team and works hard. And because of the fact that tactically the football is like a well-oiled machine, the players aren't stupid. They feel comfortable in the system and they understand the system now, and it's not just running aimlessly. And they feel that when they can come back from games, in big games, when they're a goal down and win, home, away, that breeds confidence, that breeds belief. And and the way that he also behaves, because he is a volcano, of emotion on the side.
No, I mean, also, he's done this losing Victor. He's done this season, losing his two best players, Victor Osimhen. I mean, don't get me wrong, playing once a week is a huge advantage, right? And I'm sure next season, I think Napoli, they'll need to do some really good business in the transfer market. I think they might struggle a bit next
Yeah,
season,
me too.
but what he's done, having lost his best two players, Victor Osimhen and Kavicha Claret, these two superstars, let's be honest,
Mm.
Kavicha Kvaratskhelia mid-season in such chaotic circumstances off the pitch due to incompetence above his head on both players, and it's been chaotic and it's been very public, both of them. The way that he's managed to override that and do what he's done is incredible. And even for this game, they're without Buongiorno and Oliveira. They have to play Juan Jesus and Spinazzola. I'm looking at that before the game, and I'm thinking, Juventus or whoever the opponent is that is a real chance to target that area. That looks weak to me. And so it's incredible, really, what he's done with what he has available and with the circumstances. I mean, I thought Spinazzola was brilliant in this game. I thought after Anguissa, I thought he was the best player on the pitch. He was rolling back the years, some incredible dribbles, and he was beating McKennie for fun. And then Anguissa, the guy he's turned him into a beast, and he scores again. But as well as the kind of the mental aspect and what he's psychological aspect of what he's brought Conte, tactically, and this was apparent in this game, but it's been apparent all season, is he was targeting Juve's fullbacks in this game. That was a clear tactic for me. Juventus fullbacks are weak on crosses, and they were putting lots of crosses into the box. That's how the equaliser came on McKennie, targeting McKennie, and Cambiasso is weak on the other side as well. We're putting a lot of crosses onto it, so that was tactical. But also, like, just generally, the number of players Napoli get in the box on crosses all season, or especially like in the last couple of months or so. They're getting 5 or 6 players, and there's a lot of big guys. Lukaku, Anguissa, and McTominay. These players are so good in the air, so dangerous from the air, and that's why they're starting to score a lot of goals. You compare that to say Juventus, who 1 or 2 players are in the box every time they put a cross in, and they don't even really have much of an aerial threat on those crosses from their midfield and attack upwards. That's a difference. That is, I mean, it's quite basic, but Conte has these basic rules: what he wants from his squad, what he wants, how he wants his team to play, and everybody does it. And then he does for individual games. He has certain tactical tweaks, such as targeting the Juve fullbacks in this game on crosses. So that's why it's all working, and it was great. And I think individually, like I said, I think those were the key ones for me: Anguissa, Spinazzola, and then I thought Lukaku. He played the role that he's been doing, and I thought Politano was pretty good as well. He caused
It's very
Cambiasso a lot of
funny
problems.
with Politano, given that the last 2 coaches that Napoli have had, are coaches that discarded Politano at Inter. He struggled under Spalletti, and they didn't get along. Well, he wins a Scudetto under Spalletti. Then Conte comes, and he doesn't want him, gets rid of him, and now he's finding him at Napoli, and he's actually working really well there. It's like it's very, very funny to me, just as a note, how Politano couldn't work with them at Inter with Spalletti or Conte, but at Napoli everything's great. It's it's a funny little anecdote there. But no, I mean, look, just the tactical aspect of it, stretching the pitch. When Lobotka drops deep and the two centre halves in the back four move out to right and left centre back, and you have the full backs going as wing backs, you have the wingers becoming some sort of inverted wingers, creating a numerical advantage there. You have a Lukaku who's the best in the world still with his back against the goal, holding off defenders. No one gets near him, and he's also looking much more energetic and dynamic now at this point in the season and fitter. And then you have the midfield with Lobotka, with Anguissa, who is everywhere. He's a tuttocampista, and McTominay as well, and they just outrun and dominate and create advantages, numerical advantages, overloading, overlapping, and just putting the work in is just so interesting. And that's why, that's what he did against the Juve fullbacks, because he basically knew that he could overload and dominate them and create, give his wingers and wingbacks time for crosses. And if you got Lukaku dragging players out of position, and you got Anguissa and McTominay running in from behind with space, well, that makes it really, really difficult to defend against. Again, it's
for sure. I mean, now it's the transfer market. Big last week of the transfer window, but what has happened here is, we'll see what happens. They need a replacement for Kvaratskhelia. So Garnacho and Adeyemi, they're in negotiations for both. They're hoping to get one or the other. Obviously, Garnacho is the priority, but they also, they want another central midfielder and defender as well. I mean, I think, listen, Conte has basically, with these 2 wins, that's given him the authority to basically say, now give me what I want and let me win the Scudetto, because he's put himself in that position. So, we'll see what happens in the last week, but Conte's in a strong bargaining position, put it that way, when it comes to buying a player. But let's talk about Juventus now. First Serie A defeat of the season for Juve. And excuse me, they were really excellent in the first half. Really excellent. They were the better team. They created 2 big chances, scored one of them. I thought the pressing was great. The high pressing, the energy levels were really good. Tactically, Motta was getting the better of Conte in that first half. They conceded almost nothing in terms of chances. Just, I think, an Anguissa header off was it a corner or a cross towards the end, just before Kolo Muani scored. And of course, Kolo Muani on his debut scored, had a good first half. It was looking really, really good. What happened in the second half? It was shocking. I've never seen a difference between a first half and a second half in a Juventus performance since that Cardiff final and the Champions League final against Madrid, where the second half, they just literally, from the second they stepped onto the pitch for the second half, they just completely collapsed. And Juventus, I mean, the second half was the worst performance of the season by Juve. I mean, listen, Napoli were excellent and we've given them the credit, but Juve were just awful, shocking. Look at these stats for the second half for Juventus. 0 shots of any kind on or off target, 0 corners, 38% possession. And let me just tell you, I checked at the time that Napoli scored their second goal, I checked the possession stats, and Juventus had 19% possession at that time for the second half. Obviously, after Napoli went ahead, they probably, they went a little bit more conservative, and that's why the possession number came up a little bit. 0 XG for the second half versus Napoli, who in the second half had 10 shots, 6 corners, a 2.25 XG. I mean, absolutely shocking what happened in that second half. Now, Motta gave a lot of excuses at the end of the game, which I didn't particularly like. One of them was obviously the physical angle. I mean, which is true. Obviously they're going to be more tired. They played in midweek away to Club Bruges in the Champions League, and Napoli have a whole week to prepare, obviously. But it was just the way that it happened instantly from the moment they stepped onto the pitch in the second half. It wasn't a gradual physical decline during the game. It was just instant and throughout the entire second half. So, I mean, it was just shocking. It's shocking what happened to Juve. And I think that this showed me a few things. Number one, physically, this team is not up to it. We've seen way too many physical dips this season, either in games or throughout a whole game. The start of the season, physically, Juventus looked good. When they were winning those early games, they were pressing high, the intensity was good, a bit like what we saw in the first half of this game, a bit what we saw against Milan during that kind of 25-minute period at the start of the second half where they won the game against Milan with those 2 goals. Physically, Motta's physical preparation isn't up to it, and this totally backs up what I said when I was speaking to my sources, and I said that some players are unhappy with the physical preparation, that Motta was preparing them for games like they're playing once a week, as if he was still the manager of Bologna playing once a week. And I think it's true. But physically, they're not up to it. The physical preparation is not good enough, because that's unacceptable, that the way that they just fell apart in the second half physically. But number 2, and this is more on Giuntoli, they're too experienced. Juve lack experience. This is the 8th game this season that Juve have been in the lead and then they've not won. They've dropped 17 points this season from leading positions they've thrown away. So Giuntoli has built a team that is too young. No one in the team virtually no one in the team has won anything. And the average age is too young. They can't handle these moments in games, key moments, balanced moments where they're ahead. What do you stick or twist? Or key moments of games like we've seen so many late goals that they've conceded. They cannot handle it. That's on Giuntoli, and I think that happened in this game as well. They were ahead, the second half started, and then the crowd started to get behind Napoli, and they couldn't handle it. And then, of course, just the general gaps and weaknesses in the team that we've spoken about for a long time, where there's gaps and they're being exploited by the opposition. And I'll give one example: the fullbacks can't defend crosses, and teams are exploiting that. We've seen quite a few goals recently. Goals at the back post. Juventus, on crosses are weak, and they also don't score any goals off crosses either. So I think that's it's a combination of all of those things. But conclusion is that second half performance was embarrassing.
For me, I look. This is the first time Motta's playing 3. Having to balance a couple of more than one competition or 2. Ideally, really just 1 in his coaching career, and he's being thrown into a deep end where it's 5. It's the Supercoppa, it's the Coppa, it's the Serie A, it's the Champions League, and it's going to be a Club World Cup, which is baptism by fire, and that's what it means when you are appointed coach of Juve. It's just how it is. So I was kind of expecting to see him struggle with balancing and juggling all of this, but there's balance, struggling, and then there's collapsing. Juve collapsed in the second half. They just weren't there. And that is worrying. And that is unacceptable. That is the thing that costs people their jobs at the big clubs. Losing when you learn, losing whilst learning on the job, that's acceptable. But collapsing in big games from one half to another is not. That's the kind of things that gets you sacked in Italy from the big clubs. And not now, but I'm just saying he needs. They can't continue doing that, and they can't. He can't. He can't afford another collapse like that, because then questions will be asked, and it's very ruthless, especially at Juve. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the individual quality. I respect, actually. I think Lele Adani is. I like listening to him break down movements. I like to listen. I think he's, he can be a little bit over the top when he's gets too much of a fanboy when he's commentating for Rai. But I do think he understands the game, and I actually think he's a decent play-by-play tactical analyst. But when I don't know what they were trying to prove or what he was trying to prove, together with Cassano's an idiot. I expect an idiot to say he's the village idiot, so I don't take anything he says seriously. But when him and Cassano go on this rant, and it is a rant, arguing that the best Italian midfielder is Manuel Locatelli, they don't, Cassano believes it because, well, he's not, he doesn't live in the same reality as the rest of us. But Adani does. And it's a stupid thing to say. It's just deliberately inflammatory to create waves. He's a good player, but he's not a top player. And these individual mistakes that he makes, these brain farts that he does time and time again when under pressure, giving away insane penalty kicks in decisive moments, missing simple passes, putting his team this is no longer just a one-off. It happens time and time again. For Locatelli to be good, he needs a top player next to him, like we saw in the Euros with Barella and Verratti or Jorginho. He needs top players next to him for him to be very, very good. That's just how it is.
And he needs to play in a 3 as well.
Yes.
I agree with all of that. He's too slow. He's too slow. He needs players to run for him as well. I agree. I think this game, that we've had the proof now this month. 2 penalties given away for utter
No,
stupidity.
but his career shows that. It's not just these 2 games. It's he's not a child anymore.
Yeah,
He's not a teenager anymore. I mean, he's an experienced player. He's one of the people at Juve who's supposed to be one of the more experienced.
And the worrying thing is he's actually been one of Juventus' better players this season as well.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And that's the worrying thing. I mean, what he's doing, diving in like that on McTominay, he wasn't even about to shoot either. It wasn't like a last gasp desperation tackle either. He wasn't. If you see the body of the, I mean, it's just madness. It's utter madness. He's, like you said, I think that you summed it up perfectly. He's a good player, can be a very good player, but he's not a top player. He's not a player.
He needs top players.
He's not a player for a top club. He can be probably a rotation player at Juventus, like a fourth midfielder, fifth midfielder. Yes, but he's not.
That's exactly my thoughts.
Yeah, he's not, and I think Luciano Spalletti's been proven right on him. But it's not just him. I mean, like the individual performances. Cambiasso again. Cambiasso gives away another goal. The way that his again, this is happening time and time again. He gives the ball away. Well, Juventus are 1-0 up. They're at a delicate point of the game where Napoli were putting on the pressure. They just missed that chance from Lukaku's header where Di Gregorio made a miracle save. And Napoli are piling on the pressure. A delicate moment. Cambiasso's in the centre of the pitch doing his stupid inversion again. And he just gives away the ball so casually and stupidly to Napoli. And then they go on and then they score. It's the 4th goal in a number of weeks now that Juventus have conceded after Cambiasso losing the ball stupidly. And this is the problem with Cambiasso. You've got he's not there from a defensive mental point of view. He doesn't seem to recognise danger and act appropriately. You're 1-0 up in injury time. You've got to understand the moment. You don't mess around playing cute in stupid areas of the pitch, lose the ball, and you're winning 1-0 at a moment where Napoli are piling on the pressure, the crowd are behind you, your team are suffering. You don't mess around with it and play a stupid pass and lose it like that, like he did against Napoli. Cambiasso doesn't seem to understand this. And this is what's holding him. And then, I mean, I don't know, maybe the Man City stuff's played on his mind, but he's been horrendous this month for a while now, Cambiasso. And that I'm starting to think Juventus, maybe if they get an 80 million offer, maybe they should accept it. I mean, I don't think that, but there's Cambiasso, there's Locatelli, McKennie, all of those that were having a go at me last week. Are you going to admit, Carlo, you were wrong about McKennie? Well, what you saw McKennie. You saw McKennie. This is what I mean by standards, Juventus standards. McKennie's not a Juventus standard player. We saw that in his game. I mean, he's playing at fullback. We saw his limitations at fullback. He can't defend. He couldn't defend crosses. He was getting done all the time by Spinazzola in this game. We're talking Juventus standards. McKennie is not a Juventus standard player. And then Nico Gonzalez, it's just not.
He's been an unmitigated disaster since joining Juve. I mean, I can't tell you. Like, I'd say the worst ones in the top have been Douglas Luiz, Nico Gonzalez, and Koop Miners. Those 3 signings have been dreadful. And together, how much did they cost? There's people telling me that you're too harsh on Giuntoli. Do you want to tell me in what galaxy a sporting director spends 110-20 million on players, and every single one of them, of those 3 that you spend over 100 million on, has turned out to be not bad, disasters? And you want to tell me that is not on the sporting director? There's no blame, there's no responsibility? I'm sorry, but that's ridiculous.
Well, there was a moment with Nico Gonzalez in I think it was the first half, where he got the ball in acres of space on the left and he had a one-on-one at Di Lorenzo, who, let me tell you, Di Lorenzo is not the best one-on-one defender at all.
No, he's not.
Right. and he basically started to run at him and then turned around and passed it back. That was the moment where I just thought, yeah, it's over. I almost thought, you almost think it's over because I mean, listen, they needed a winger. They went for him. It's not happening at the moment. He doesn't look like Juve level as a starter. But again, this is where we're talking about Juve standards. The Juve standards.
Well, given
Some of
his
these
form,
players are not bad.
he
Nico
was.
Gonzalez was an excellent player at Fiorentina. He
Yeah,
was
but
really good.
but if
He was their best
the
player.
level he's playing at this season at Juve, he wouldn't even.
But that's
get
what I
into
mean.
the
That's what I'm
Fiorentina.
saying.
He
There's
wouldn't even get.
levels.
No,
There's
no,
Juventus levels.
No. He's not getting into the Fiorentina team now. That's how poor he is. He's not getting into any team that in the top 8 playing like this.
Well, yeah, but that happens though, doesn't it? There's players that just can't move up the level, and then they don't.
I don't want to say anything definitive on these yet because I think a lot of it is also down to.
Yeah, he's had injury problems as well.
Yeah,
and
and
there's
also
all the other issues. He's
and
obviously
also not just that, also the fact that there's the striker situation as well. Kolo Muani is obviously looking like he's more adapted.
Well, that's the one positive from this game is Kolo Muani. He starts, he scores, great finish. He was moving much better.
Well, he was
moving.
moving.
The difference between he moved. Well, yeah. I mean, not hard to move much better than the Serbian.
He's actually moving.
The
You
Serbian
have a striker that moves.
The Serbian tree. It's not harder to move more than the Serbian tree. But listen, he can switch positions with the other attackers.
Yes,
which was causing Napoli problems, and he did. And I loved his goal. I thought that was a fantastic, instant finish. I've seen some people comparing it to Trezeguet. It was a a la Trezeguet, like the way that it just bang, not even thinking about it. So that's the positive.
I think he's going to score quite a few for Juve, to be honest. He looked really fresh.
Yeah, he looked good, and so that's the positive. Juventus need to pray that Muani can play like he did in the first half and get them the goals to try and get them in that top 4, because at the moment it doesn't look like they're going to get it. It doesn't look like it. 2 wins in 10 games. And they're fighting against, I mean, Fiorentina and Bologna are there as well. But I mean, I think it's going to be out of Milan and Lazio, realistically.
But look, Juventus in the Serie A, the next 3 out of 4 games are against Empoli, Como, and Cagliari.
Well, that's what I mean. Listen, we need 9 points from those 3 games. If we don't get it, then I think you start asking questions whether it's even worth trying to bring in another manager instead of Motta, because Juventus cannot afford not to be in the Champions League next season. They can't. If they don't, they're out of the Champions League. This project goes back about 2 or 3 years. It's a disaster. It's a complete disaster. Then they almost have to rebuild again. They're going to lose players. I mean, it's a total unmitigated disaster if Juventus don't get it in the Champions League. Italian teams cannot afford not to be in the Champions League, especially once Juventus weren't in it last season. And we've seen, as I was saying on Thursday's show, the financial effects of that and how they plummeted down the Deloitte Money League. They're below even Milan and Inter right now, Juventus. I mean, that's how bad it's got. It's a total disaster. So, listen, those 3 games you mentioned are key for Motta. Otherwise, because I'm starting to lose faith in Motta now. I really am. And I look at the other teams. I mean, would I back Juventus against Milan and Lazio? I don't know. 2 wins in 10 games Juventus have got. It's getting worse. It's getting worse now. But they've got Muani in. We'll see if he can make a difference, and we'll see how they finish the transfer market as well. They might bring in another defender. Well, they will bring in another defender before the end of the transfer market. Let's move on to Inter. They thrashed Lecce 4-0 in this game. Frat's party. He had two more goals, and just to close off the Juventus theme. Frattesi has more goals this season, and he's a reserve for Juve for Inter. Some would say he's the 6th choice Inter midfielder. He has more goals this season than Juventus's entire midfield of Coop Miners, Thuram, Luiz, who Juve spent over 130 million on. I think that tells 2 stories. That does.
Look, this was one of the few times this season, maybe 5th or 6th, like I explained on Thursday pod for patrons, where Inter were padroni del campo. They dominated from start to finish, had 2 goals disallowed. There was a penalty situation, which we'll get to. but this finally was an Inter that imposed themselves from start to finish, and they had control in midfield. And they had control in midfield because, okay, it was Lecce. It's not, wasn't a world beater, but they had more control in midfield, even though there were instances they got overrun because Zielinski does not like playing as a regista, as he keeps telling us time and time again. But because of the fact that he is technical, he's much more dynamic. He's a great passer. He moves. He understands how to change positions. He's actually more press resistant than Aslani and all of those things. And that allows Inter to become more fluid and get the most out of someone like Frattesi, who I think we saw already midweek after the Sparta Prague game when he came on that he looked, whatever issue has been between him and Inter has been resolved. They've had a conversation and they have resolved the issue. Personally, my hunch is that they've basically had this conversation where they're like, listen, you're going to get more time, you're going to get more minutes, but you're going to have to prove when you do get minutes, and let's be professional. At the end of the season, we'll make a decision whether you stay or go. But until the end of the season, you stay and you give everything, and we give you a fair chance. Let's be professional about it. And this is, again, I think, a situation which shows how important a sporting director or someone like Marotta is, maintaining the happiness. Your role is not just to buy and sell players. Your role is also to keep the happiness inside the house, keep everyone happy. And Marotta is a master at that. And it seems he's managed to do this too, because Frattesi was emotional after the game, talking about how much he loves to be at Inter and how happy he is, and he's never asked to leave. And it's important to be able to handle these situations, not just Marotta but Inzaghi. And Inzaghi afterwards was talking about how much he called him, Frattesi was a secret weapon last season, and that he's got an excellent relationship with him, and so on and so forth. So that was very key. And then Denzel Dumfries, I mean, he's having that season of his life. That I think he scored 8 for Inter in all competitions, 11 for both club and country this season.
11 is absolutely insane.
The thing is, with him is, ever since that contract extension, usually, or not usually, but many times, players, when they get a contract extension, they slow down. Dumfries has put in an extra gear after that contract extension, in the sense that he's unlocked his full potential. And that tells me, again, is a testament to his mentality and his leadership. And he is a leader. The only aspect about Denzel Dumfries' game that is world class, and I mean world class, is his mentality and his mental strength. It's steel. He has a desire of steel. And he puts himself and always at the service of the team. He is a team player, and he leads by example. And the way that he's being used by Inzaghi this season, he's understood that role much more. He's not really a wing back, he's a winger. He doesn't participate in the build-up play, but given that he doesn't, he allows Inter's one of Thuram and Lautaro to drop deep, but then they don't lose that depth in attack, profondità, because he pushes forward, he becomes a striker. And his finishing is excellent. Aerially, when he gets into positions, I mean, that goal, he just powers through. That he's got a backpack of a Lecce player hanging on him, but it doesn't. That ball is going into the back of the net. That is his desire. That is his passion. That is his mental strength. He just never. He's relentless, and for all the criticisms that you can aim at him, and you can, because he's not very technically gifted. He is very limited. He can't beat his man. He can't dribble. But it doesn't matter, because what he does, he actually offers Inter many other options that they don't, that they otherwise wouldn't have. And it's just,
I would say
it's so
pound for pound, he's the most effective player in Serie A, and that's the biggest compliment I get in football. Sometimes there are just incredibly effective players.
Yeah.
Pippo Inzaghi is another one. All those criticisms you could say about technique, physique, all those things you could say about Pippo Inzaghi, but mentally, in terms of game intelligence, like in terms of his intelligence, getting into the
Speed of
areas,
game, positioning.
positioning, all that kind of stuff, I mean, he was world class, one of the best of his generation.
Yeah, but he was
And
much more technical than Denzel Dumfries. But
well,
I
I don't
know
know.
what you mean.
I'm
I
not
know what you
sure.
mean.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, no.
It's like he had no technique.
I think I'm more technical than Denzel Dumfries, and I literally have 2 flat feet.
11
Yeah,
goals for a right wing back is absolutely insane. There's no
it
doubt
is.
about it. I'm not saying he's the best wing back in
No,
the
no, no.
world. I'm saying this season he's the best wing back in the world. There's no
I
doubt
think
about it.
that's
You don't
what I was
score.
going to
You
get
don't
to.
score 11 goals and 3 assists as well. By the way, so he's
That's what I
delivering.
was going to get to. I think when you look at on performance, I don't think you have to say that he's by far the best wing back or fullback in the Serie A this season, and I think you can make an argument that he's, if not the best this season on performance alone, he's top 3 in the world. He's having the season of his lifetime, and it's important that he does have that because Inter need him to score when Lautaro, Thuram, and midfielders aren't having their best days. You just need the goals to come from somewhere, and that Denzel Dumfries will provide because he's just relentless. And of course, Lautaro Martinez, world class. There's no other words to describe him. When he's in this form, when he's fit, when things are working for him, Lautaro is a world class player, and that's why he does world class things, from back heels flicks to Dumfries for the goal, to that thunderbolt finish with his left foot, to his link up play, his movement. No, he was just outstanding, absolutely outstanding. So no, it was a very important game, and also it was really important for Inter to win and dominate from start to finish without wasting too much energy. It was important that Taremi gets on the score sheet, that he breaks his duck. You could see that meant a lot to the players and the team, and they need him. They need depth. They need the depth players to deliver, and they did. And it was a very, very overall calming performance going into Derby week, where they first play Monaco at home to secure top 8, and if they win, there's a big chance they can even finish second behind Liverpool. So, which will be very important, not just financially, but also for seeding in terms of home game advantages, and also avoiding Liverpool until the final and stuff like that. So it was a good game. The only negative, though, and I absolutely lost it whilst I was watching. This is something Italian coaches do, and that if Allegri was there, he would have done it. That if Gasperini was there, he would have done it. There is no need whatsoever to bring on Nicolo Barella when you're 3-0 up. There's just no need for it on that potato farm of a pitch. There's no need for it. And then when he goes into that, when he's on the floor screaming in agony, his knee, and everyone is thinking, oh my God, ACL, the look on Alessandro Bastoni of complete fear, and just, he couldn't even breathe, how scared he was. Everyone at Inter were just holding their breath, right? Then, there's no need to play him when you're 3-0 up. That's the first thing. After that situation, I don't care if he wants to continue. You're 3-0 up. You play with 10 men until the end because you've done all your subs. You don't need, this is Lecce away. Sorry, at that point, they were 4-0 up even. And this is the Italian coach thing, where they just sometimes, this archaic thing of, you can't, you need to have a few minutes to keep them fresh in match tempo. This is Lecce away. You're 4-0 up. There is no need to risk Nicolo Barella. It's dumb and it's stubborn. And Inter dodged a bullet, because an ACL for Barella, that's Inter's season. Goodbye. Arrivederci. Bye. Finished. And it's it's a stupid risk. I mean, risk versus reward. It just pissed me off. There was no need for it. Now let's hope that he's not injured. But he said he took a bad knock.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a hit. It'll be fine. But yeah, definitely, it was probably an unnecessary risk to take from the start. Let's yeah. The only other thing with this game from Lecce is Patrick Dorgu. Man United are in talks to sign him, and they're about to table a new offer of around 37 to 38 million. according to Nicola Skira. Lecce are asking
Corvino, my brother, what are you doing?
Lecce are asking for 40 million. So we'll see. We'll see.
Pantaleo
They're getting
Corvino.
closer to the.
Pantaleo Corvino is doing a masterclass. That's all I'm going to say. I love
Yeah,
it.
well, yeah, that's what everyone does to Man United.
Yeah, but Pantaleo Corvino is just
Mm,
to do it when you're at Lecce is just
yeah,
chef's kiss.
let's move on to Como versus Atalanta. Comeback win for a lot of comebacks this weekend. Big comeback win for Atalanta, and their first Serie A win of 2025 came after an awful first half where they created nothing and they had an XG in the first half of 0.02. Gasperini made widespread changes at half time and at the start of the second half, four changes, and it changed the game. But the one, I mean, Brescianini was probably the biggest impact player. He
Yeah,
got two assists, which added to the goal that he scored against Sturm Graz. It was a really good week for him. He kind of added that drive and penetration, but it's obviously that the story is once again Mateo Retegui, who scored both of Atalanta's goals. Two more goals for him, two more clinical finishes. That's 4 games in a row now he scored since returning from injury. 5 goals in that time. The first goal in particular was a brilliant finish. So clinical that like the movement to get goal side of his man and then scoring and then the second goal was quite easy finish, but it was still he put it away. So you know, 2 shots on target for Atalanta and Retegui at the time of the second goal. I didn't check it after that. So, Retegui was the difference really in this game because this was a difficult game. It was a tight game. Como were playing well, and Retegui was the difference. So, I mean, we're running out of superlatives now for Retegui.
the development he's taken, the growth of this season. I can't think of. There's lots of players that have grown this season, but the most difficult step to take is the one that Retegui's taken from to a top player. He's playing at a top player level. He's one of the best strikers in Europe this season, not just for goals scored, not just for aerial ability, but again, movement, link up, pressing, making those around him better, playing them into position. Himself being able, the way that he moves around that box is just relentless. The way he runs and finds space, and of course the assassin's touch. But he's always had that. He's Gasperini has worked his one magic wand again, and I'm glad that he has done so with Retegui because the Italian national team need him. They do. They really, really need him. And it's so impressive to see. I don't think anyone is stopping him from being top goal scorer in the Serie A this season. And I think if he hadn't had that injury, he probably would have already been above 20. It's and I'm looking at him in the summer and I'm thinking, I don't think he stays at Atalanta. I don't see him going to the Premier League either. I don't think he's a Premier League player. But I look at Juve and I look at Vlahovic and I think that's the most natural move ever. And there's some historical precedent there, isn't it? I mean, the last time an Atalanta, or the only time that an Atalanta player has won the Capocannoniere was in 96-97 when Filippo Inzaghi scored 24 goals for Atalanta and then went to Juve. Well, Retegui is going to probably be the second.
I hope that he stays at Atalanta for one more season until the World Cup because I want him going into that World Cup as a guarantee of another excellent season. I don't want him joining a new club where maybe he has to adjust to a new style of play. Although I think he's proven now that he can adjust to any style of play. But I want him to stay. I don't want him to be coop-minded. Put it that way.
I don't think he will be
Do you
coop-minded
know what I
because of
mean?
the fact that if he continues to move, I mean, it depends on who the coach at Juve is and what they tell him to do.
Well, not just Juve, anywhere, but I mean, we've seen it with so many Atalanta
But that's
players. Where
I know, but I think it's a different
guarantee.
one.
Like everybody thought Koop Miners would be a guarantee. I did.
Yeah.
I thought, he's not going to get Atalanted, and he has. Even he has as well. So it makes you think whether But listen, fantastic. And
Just one thing on Brescianini, he's Atalanta's McTominay. These piercing runs, these linking up of midfield and attack with just his movement and penetrating runs, like you said. he's very, and the drive and the way that he carries the ball and like gallops forward, he's going to be very useful for them. It's it was not. I'm not surprised that Brescianini turned this game on its head.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on. Well, let's move on to Milan.
Can we just say about Nico Paz?
Oh, yeah, Nico Paz, yeah, great finish. I mean, I've been speaking about him all season. He's a fantastic player. He's class. He's pure class. He's so elegant.
Pure class.
Yeah.
Like, I saw someone, I can't remember who it was, who said something that they don't think he's good enough for a big club, and I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Well, Real Madrid will bring him back, I'm sure. And then
Well,
they'll either
Real
sell him on.
Madrid,
They'll sell him on for a fortune. I mean, I know like Inter have been linked with him and a few other teams, but I'm thinking he's probably too expensive even for Italian clubs now. He's that good. If they do,
he's so good.
if they do sell him Real Madrid when they bring him back, they'll do one of these kind of Morata deals where
Brahim Diaz, yeah, that's the one
Diaz
that's
deals
being
where they
discussed.
sell him for an affordable price to an Italian club, but they'll put in a buyback clause and they'll bring him back. So
Yeah.
you know, listen, if you can get, even if you're Inter and you can, because I'm sure they want him. Zanetti went to watch him a few weeks ago.
Zanetti had dinner with his dad at one of
I'm
Zanetti's
sure that
restaurants in Milan, El
if
Gaucho,
you're
the
Inter and you can have him
barbecue
for 1 or 2 seasons and then lose him, I would still take him because I think he's fantastic. But it's but yeah, he's someone with a big future for sure. Milan versus Parma. There's only one incident. Well, the thing is that the story of this game should have been the crazy injury time comeback from Milan. They scored 2 goals in injury time through Reinders and Chukwueze to overturn a 2-1 defeat into a 3-2 win, and a game in which they were horrendous for the entire game until injury time. And we saw again kind of what I was saying about Motta, that this was basically Conceição's spirit within this game, getting the team to fight until the end and getting that out of them and somehow managing to win a game they didn't deserve to win. They were so bad. That should have been the talking point of this game, but it's been completely overshadowed by this insane incident at the end of the game between Conceição and Calabria. Calabria had already been substituted off. At the end of the game, as they were celebrating the win, Calabria must have said something to Conceição, which Conceição didn't take very well. They then started basically shouting at each other, and then they had to be separated. Fofana dragged Conceição away in one direction. Calabria was dragged away by somebody else in the other direction. It was very, very ugly. It really didn't look good at all. After the game, Calabria apologised for what happened and basically said, misunderstanding, everybody's adrenaline was high, these things can happen. Conceição was more kind of asserting his authority, saying, these things can happen, but, sometimes like a parent with their child, they have to kind of discipline and so he asserted his authority. But the bottom line is that this really didn't look good at all. And I think that when you add the fact that Conceição took off Leao and Teo Hernandez at half time as well, this is showing that, and I think Conceição can handle it, and I think he's the right man to handle it, but this kind of shows just the situation that Conceição finds himself in with a bunch of players who really aren't behaving in a way that they should be behaving if they want to create a winning team.
I look at this a little bit differently, this particular incident. I think this was, from a strategic point of view, Sergio Conceicao just won with a TKO. He played a diplomatic masterclass. Regardless of the official reason, there's talk of Calabria, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and Teo all going to a concert on Friday night, coming in at 2 a.m., regardless of Calabria kicking a water bottle at Conceicao, which Sky Sport Italia reported after he was subbed to Conceicao, and Conceicao looked at him. Regardless of all of that, Calabria is, to put it mildly, far from popular among Milan fans. In fact, you can go so far as to say that he's very hated. And I don't think hate is too strong a word here. The fact that he's wore the captain's armband has been seen among many Milanisti in the media as well as out just fans, and it's been an affront. So I view this from a little different
because
angle.
he's not good enough.
Well, that and also his attitude. But I view this from a little bit of a different angle. So 6 days ago, ahead of the Champions League match against Girona, Conceicao said to the fans, "You might not like us, but we're the ones here at Milan. If you don't support us, the club suffers. Don't be the 12th man, be the first man. Please pick up on the atmosphere." So what he's essentially said there was support the player. He supports the players and the team outwards. And inwards, we all know that he demands that every single player give their all for the shirt. And if you add to this, he wants, Magnon is the new captain. He wants to make that permanent. Now, fast forward to the San Siro yesterday against Parma. I think it was 57th or 60th minute. Calabria miskicks a cross on the back of a dreadful performance, and the San Siro explodes in boos and jeers. I mean, he's already had a torrid game. Now, add to that, the Kyle Walker's just arrived. And of course, the concert with Theo and Ruben Loftus-Cheek that Calabria was there. Ruben Loftus-Cheek didn't play. Theo was subbed off. Now add to this that Milan come back in dramatic fashion through heart, fight, grit, as demonstrated by Pavlovic. They win it to death. And I think Conceicao just sees his chance to prove a point to the fans, the squad, and give himself exactly the excuse he needs to go after Calabria and nip this in the bud, this rut in the squad. And it all happens in the week leading up to the derby. For me, this just ticks every single box. This makes it easier to bench Calabria. It makes it easier to permanently and officially just strip him of all authority in the team. It wakes the team up psychologically, and it breeds confidence that you get from winning at the death. And the fans will love him for this. Look, Conceicao is breeding a red and black army inside and outside of this club. This is how Mourinho used to build teams. This siege mentality based on strength, determination, hard work, and respecting the shirt. It's similar to what Conte does, Simeone does. It's pure mentality monster stuff. And I have to say, well played Conceicao, and congrats Milan, because you now have a strong man and he's breeding an army.
No, listen. I think that's a brilliant theory. I love it. I love how the way you explained it. What I would say, I 100% agree with you. Is as I said myself, the way that he comes out of this as authoritative. There's
This is what I mean.
there's no questions, and I even mean the way that he comes across as somebody that's in control.
Yep.
If this had happened under Fonseca would have probably come out of it. He probably wouldn't have even squared up. He would have come out looking weak, and this is the difference between Conceicao and Fonseca, is that Conceicao can handle these situations, even handling a squad that, I mean, listen, the way that they don't behave like winners, and you can add the concept to that as well. We saw at half time. I mean, he's taken off Teo Hernandez and Leao, so he's recognising the same problems that Fonseca recognised. But I'm sure that he will handle that situation in a way that won't affect the squad negatively in the way that it did with Fonseca, because Conceicao, I think, is his personality and his character. He's able to handle these kind of things better and in a more authoritative way. But he's clearly recognised those problems are there, on and off the pitch. And we saw, Leao and Teo were shocking in the first half. Their work rate, their lack of desire. I mean, Teo's defending on the Cancellieri goal is just embarrassing. I mean, he's a left-footed player coming from the right, and he shows him onto his left foot. He says, "Come on, come inside, come onto your left foot, come on." I mean, do you know what I mean? He's the lollipop man there. I mean, it's horrendous defending. And then he takes both off at half time. Didn't really improve things. But
I just have to talk about Leao here for a second, because that is one of the worst halves I've seen him play for Milan. Just listen to this. He played 45 minutes, 0 shots on target, 1 off. He had 3 attempts at dribbling, succeeded with 0 of them. He had 9 attempted passes, 6 of them were accurate. He made 1 cross, not accurate. This is where it gets really embarrassing. The number of ground duels he partook in was 8. He won 0. He lost possession 10 times. He was dribbled past by Parma once. I mean, that is awful. I don't even have words to describe how bad that is. That attitude, I don't know what's going on. And he was, this is on the back of a midweek performance where he decided the game for Milan with a lovely draw, the usual wow stuff. And Conceicao had to do what he did. He took him off at half time and brought on Benasser. It didn't become better, but you can't allow for that kind of lack of passion, lack of desire, lack of caring. And that's this is what I mean about Conceicao breeding an army. He's breeding an army. He's winning over everyone inside, outside the club by doing these things. And the team reacts, scoring 3 times in 5 minutes towards the end, once off for offside. I mean, nobody embodies this more than Pavlovic, who shows that even though he might make mistakes and even though they play a little bit too high of a line for him to really thrive because he's not very quick, passion, desire, and mental strength count for a lot, wanting to win. And that's what Conceicao brings. And he's a strong character. And these wars inside the squad, he's going to win all of them. And in the summer, he's going to drive out those he doesn't want. And when that happens, Milan are going to be very dangerous moving forward. Like he doesn't, he's like I said, he's breeding Urukai, not even an army. He's breeding Urukai. He's like Saruman in he's breeding monsters, and they react. And the fact that they continue to come back from goals late on and win games is again a sign of unbelievable mental strength.
It's a huge win for them in the top 4 race. They win their game in hand, and then they're level with Juventus, and obviously Lazio lost as well. So it's been a big weekend in more ways than one for Milan. Obviously they've got the derby next as well. So I mean, this is what I was saying before. Like I feel like the Conceicao factor is really is giving Milan an advantage over Juventus.
Well, I don't think it matters if they finish in the top 4 because Italy are about to secure for the second year in a row that extra 5th position in the Champions League.
Well, there's a long way
Oh,
to
they
go.
are not far off. I think there was I saw percentage-wise they're like 80% sure of it.
Well, they're in a good position at the moment. There's a long way to go. They're going to be fighting. England have basically got it sewn up.
England have won. They're top.
Yeah, but there's ages to go. There's the whole knockout stages to go. I mean,
but if you look at this, there was someone who did a brilliant breakdown of this in terms of percentage-wise and chances. Bundesliga are out of it. Like they have 0 chance. And Italy, in terms of how far ahead they are to other leagues, which is difficult given that Italy have the most places, because you have to remember the number of points you get is divided also
so they
by
get
the
less
number of
points.
teams you have. So this is a really, really good performance.
They're in a good position, but there's a long way to go. I think they're going to be fighting it out with Spain because a lot will depend on if Italian teams all go out in the next round of the in Europe, and if Roma were to go out as well, who are in a risky position, and Spain have still got nearly all of their teams still in. So I think it's out of Italy and Spain. There's a long way to go, but they're in a good position at the moment. But yes, the bottom line is yes. Juventus and Milan need to pray that the Italian teams continue to do well in Europe and get that place because they're going to need it. But yeah, let's move on to Lazio against Fiorentina. 2-1 win for Fiorentina. From Lazio's point of view, very disappointing performance. They almost as themselves got an incredible injury time comeback, like Milan, scored in injury time. Pedro hits the post, the last kick of the game. But overall, they didn't play well. Fiorentina just looked fresher. again, the kind of playing once a week
Mm.
angle this week, because they didn't play midweek. Lazio looked more. I mean, Lazio shouldn't have been tired because they played against Real Sociedad team that played with 10 men for an hour. It was basically a training game, the last hour of that game against Real Sociedad. So they shouldn't have been tired. They were bad in this game, and they have. I think the biggest conclusion I would make from Lazio is the last month or so, the defence has gone off the boil. The start of the season, the defence wasn't good, but they were kind of scoring enough goals to make up for it. But our analysis of it was, Lazio doing great start, but they need to sort this defence out if they want to stay up there. And they did sort it out for a while, but now the last month we've seen those kind of Baroni weaknesses in defence, and it's been costing them in the last one. And I think they lost a big chance here. They could have opened up a gap of 5 points to Juventus, and they've blown it. So
That's why I think both Juve and Milan are going to make the Champions League. I think they're finishing 4th and 5th. I think they're going to be saved by that. So I'm not too worried. But look, it was a crazy ending to the game. Just got to talk about these penalties because, well, I think Pedro is not given a penalty for exactly the same situation that Pavlovic is given a penalty for in the Milan-Parma game. Like, you can't give one and not the other. I personally don't think either is a penalty. This nudge push goalkeeper on the striker. I think it takes more. Other than that, I think it's the first time in almost 9 years that Fiorentina win away against Lazio at the Olimpico in the Serie A, and they do so by really, really showing grit and determination to kind of end their rut as well. And there's been talk of Palladino being sacked and so on, and there's been collision course between Prade and Palladino was looking, I think they both got sent off, Baroni and Palladino. It was very, very entertaining. The ending to that game was insane.
Yeah, it's a big win for Fiorentina though. 7 games without a win, they end that run, but they also re-enter the top 4 race because they're now 6th, 1 point behind Juventus and 3 points behind Lazio, who are in 4th. But they have a game in hand on both, so they can go back into the top 4 with Lazio. So yeah, big win for Fiorentina, and very, very big win for Roma as well. Nima 2-1 away at Udinese. Talking about penalties, I'm sorry, but that first penalty is a joke.
It's a stonewall penalty.
It's a
I don't know
joke.
what you're talking about.
It's
It's
a
a
joke.
stonewall penalty. His arm is out by his shoulder. It's literally out by his shoulder. Now, unless you work for Cirque du Soleil,
I didn't see it out by his shoulder. If you can show
it
me,
was out by his shoulder.
if you can show me a video or image with
Yes,
out
I
by his
can.
shoulder, I'll agree
I
with you.
absolutely can. His arm is
Well,
shoulder length.
show it to me, because the angle that I saw, it wasn't out by his shoulder. If it's out by his shoulder, then
arm
I'll
is
agree
up
with
by
you.
his shoulder.
If it's out by his shoulder, I'll agree with you and say it's a penalty. But
It's a stonewall penalty. I don't.
Well, show me. If anybody can show me the picture,
I don't
or the
need
video.
to just go on YouTube and look on Serie A.
Well, I watched the video back, and it wasn't out by his shoulder. The video that
It was
I saw.
out by his. It was literally up by his shoulder level. Like, this is the reason. If we look at Inter Lecce, the reason why Baschirotto penalty wasn't given, even though Baschirotto pushes his arm out towards the ball, there is an element of deliberate there. What they look at is, where is his arm? Is it close to his body? Well, Baschirotto's was close to his body. Here, the arm is up by his outside of his body, and therefore it's a penalty. I don't see any problems with that. And the second penalty, I mean, the last time I saw someone sweep someone's leg like that was when I watched Karate Kid 1, when Johnny Lawrence swept Daniel LaRusso's leg. I mean, it was 2 stonewall penalties. I really don't see the issue at all. Like, what they want with the handball rule is they don't want players' arms up outside of their bodies.
I'm looking at a still of it now. It's not up by his shoulder. It's to the side. I'm looking at it right now, in a post from
I'm looking at it now too.
Maurizio
It's
Pistocchi.
outside of his body.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That is a natural position. He's
not
balanced
a natural
in
position.
football.
It's
Listen,
outside of his body.
what referees need to understand is, in football, you use your arms. You use your arms for balance. When you change direction, which he's doing here, and your balance, your arms and your hands will move slightly up or sideways. His arm has moved slightly sideways. It's a completely natural movement in the duel that he's having with Pellegrini. This should not have been a penalty. basically we have to start tying players' hands behind the back. This is a completely natural position. You playing football. This happens all the time when you're in this kind of duel. If you look at it,
It's not a natural
it is.
position.
I'm sorry. I mean,
It is not.
listen,
No, don't be sorry. Be right. It's
I've
not a
played
natural
football. I've
position.
played a lot of football.
I don't
This happens
care if you
naturally.
played in the Champions League, Carlo. The laws of the game
Yeah, but you
apply
said
to
it's out
everyone
by
equally.
shoulder. It's not.
The arm,
I'm looking at
I am looking at the
the
image
picture
now.
now.
The arm is outside of his body. It's at shoulder level.
It's not shoulder
Unless
level.
you,
It's
you,
not.
you,
I'm
you
looking at the image
when
now.
you're
It's
20 meters in the air, like a ballerina at the Cirque du Soleil, walking the
shoulder level
tightrope,
is what
that's how
shoulder
you
level is
keep
what
your
Elon
arm.
Musk did in Donald Trump's inauguration. This is by the side.
No,
This
no,
is
that's
not a
not.
Roman
No,
salute.
that's not like that at all. That was above his shoulder for political reasons, some would argue. But regardless, his arm is outside of his body. It
No.
literally is outside of his body.
It's
There's no.
it's a natural movement.
It's not a natural. That's literally the definition of the law states that this is
Well,
not a natural
that's
movement.
what I'm saying. You have to put your
So
arms.
you can't say it's wrong.
You have to say you put your arms behind their back. Then that's what they need to.
That's exactly what they want.
Write it into the rules. Everybody has to have.
No, they don't need to write it in the
have
rules
their
when they
arms
have.
tied behind their back. Let's write it.
They don't need
let's write
to do
it into
that
the referee
because
rules
they've kind of already said that.
I'm sorry, playing football, that is a completely natural movement. What he's doing in that duel, there, your
It
arms
is not
will
a
come
natural
out.
movement
It's a
as
natural
per the
movement.
laws of the game.
I'm
They
sorry,
have
it's
been
a
very clear.
100% natural movement. What he's done.
It is not a natural movement because they have defined what a natural movement is, and they don't want arms like that outside of the body. Again, the reason why Baschirotto penalty was not given is because it's by his side.
No,
even though there's a movement.
Baschirotto wasn't given because his arms are behind his back. I'm looking.
No, it's not. It's not. It really isn't. There's a movement of his arm towards the ball, but the arm is so close to his body that they prefer not to give it. It's completely consistent with here. Here, his arm is literally outside of his body.
The Baschirotto incident is a completely different incident. He's about 3 yards.
Am I speaking Chinese here? Why don't you listen to what I'm saying?
Nima,
I'm saying his arm is by his body, Baschirotto,
yes, Nima,
and even though his arm moves towards the ball,
they're completely different incidences.
No, I am explaining the laws of the game as they are applied.
Yes, and I'm explaining how football is played. That there's natural movements during duels.
It is not a natural movement as per the way that the laws of the game have been defined.
Nima, listen, we're going to disagree here. I've played football. I know you've played football, so I'm not condescending you. I've played football. These are natural movements that you make in a duel like that with Pellegrini. That is the natural movement you make. Now, if they want to make that an offence,
they have made that.
Well, there you go. I'm saying that's ridiculous. But I'm also disagreeing with you saying his arm is by his shoulder. It's not. If it's by his shoulder, then it is a penalty. It's not by his shoulder. It's slightly out to the side.
It's not slightly outside the side. It's slightly under shoulder level. We're talking 5-degree angle here.
No, we're not. It's nowhere near.
We are. I'm looking at the image.
I'm
go on Serie A's YouTube.
It's nowhere near his shoulder. It's sideways. It's equal level with his middle of his body. It's literally halfway between his hip and his shoulder. It's in the middle.
Not. It literally isn't.
I'm looking at the image right now.
I'm looking at it now. The moment you can go on Serie A YouTube's channel, you can go to Udinese Roma highlights. In the 50 seconds, 51, 50 second, 50 second, 52, second 51 and 52, you can see when the ball hits his arm is outside of his body. As way that the laws of the game are written, that's a stonewall penalty.
I think it's bollocks. There's also the distance between Pellegrini is literally, they're right next to each other, so there's no distance between. That's the difference with Baschirotto. Baschirotto is a few yards away. He's right there. He's got no time. He's
a yard and a half away. The difference is, again, it's clear that the referees, what they look at when they look at handball offences is where is the position of the arm more than intention even. And here you can say that they don't like when the players' arms are outside of their bodies. Whilst Baschirotto, even though there is intention, they didn't give it, and I have no problem.
Whether it's the law or not, anybody that's played football will tell you that is a ridiculous law if that is considered a penalty. It's ridiculous because that is a completely natural movement. If you played football, you will know that this happens all the time. That's all I'm going to say. It's a ridiculous
Well, then there should be penalties given all the time until players learn to put their arms behind the back.
Udinese are 1-0 up in this game. They're in control. And they end up losing for again. Well, even the second penalty, there's a combined XG of under 0.1 on those incidences, and they scored 2 penalties. It's a joke, but that's another discussion
that's got
altogether.
nothing to do with this.
It's just scandalous that first one could be considered a penalty. It's just a joke. Anybody that's played football will tell you that's completely natural what he's done there. If it's a law, if it's the law, it's the law. Fine, let's have it as a penalty. I'm saying it's a scandal that can be considered a penalty. Whether it's the law or not, it's a scandal that we can give penalties for that. And if I'm Udinese, I'm feeling really hard done by because they're 1-0 up, they're playing really well, and they end up losing this game. And I feel really sorry for them losing this game. But anyway, let's move on. Roma, it's an important win for Roma. They're only 4 points behind Milan and 7 behind Juventus. So they're not actually that far off, but they do obviously have a big game this weekend against Napoli. Lucca scores for Udinese. He's having a good season, and Roma are actually interested in him, which Ranieri confirmed. So we'll have to see what happens there.
I like Lorenzo Lucca. I like what I've seen from him in the sense that that is a lovely finish. And I love what his move, like he's a big guy, he's really strong, but he's also very dynamic, and that finish is, again, I think he shows off his strengths, and I love that Roma are interested in him. I think he's exactly the kind of player that Roma should be buying, to be honest with you. I think he's exactly the kind of player who Roma should be buying. I think he's well within their budget, and also the where he is in his career. I think he could do a job for Roma.
Yeah.
So
I think they need another striker. They can't be bringing on Shomurodov anymore. Anyway, listen, we're running out of time. I'm gonna have to run through. So you've got no time, Nima, for you to talk about your relegation game. So Torino 2, Cagliari 0, Empoli 1, Bologna 1, and then the games on Monday are Venezia, Verona, Genoa, Monza. European fixtures. So this week, last day of the league phase for Champions League and Europa League. Barcelona, Atalanta, Dinamo Zagreb, Milan, Inter Monaco, Juventus, Benfica, and Sporting versus Bologna. Atalanta need to win away to get in top 8. Milan need to win as well, but a draw might be enough. And Inter probably okay already, but they just need a point to clinch top 8. Juventus can't get, virtually impossible for them to get top 8. They need a win to make sure that they're seeded in the last 24 draw. And Bologna got nothing to play for, although we want them to win for our coefficient. Europa League, though, Roma, Frankfurt, and Braga, Lazio. I mean, Lazio have already won the group, barring a miracle. They'll need to get hammered not to, so they can rest their team. But Roma's the big one. They need to win to guarantee qualification. Draw could be enough. If they lose, they're going to be out. So yeah, very, very nervy because Frankfurt are a good team, and that's going to be difficult. So Roma are playing with fire. They need to win. Otherwise, I've jinxed it for saying that I thought that they could win the Europa.
Yeah, we've had some Roma fans in the Patreon chat saying that you've completely jinxed Roma.
Well, I'm going to do the other way and say that Roma cannot win the Europa League. It's impossible. There we go. Let's finish off with Baggio, Premface, and Serie ASS of the week. So Baggio, I've got a non-football one, but he does love football, and there was also a viral video of him doing kick-ups and juggling with the ball. He's a fantastic ball juggler, actually, with a tennis ball. Yannick Sinner winning the Australian Open, straight sets against Alexander Zverev. Absolutely brilliant performance, perfect performance from Sinner. He barely made a mistake the entire match. What a player he is. That's his 3rd Grand Slam, 2nd consecutive Australian Open. Incredible stat from this game that Sinner did not face a break point on his serve in the entire game, which makes him only the 3rd player this century or this millennium not to have a break point against him in a Grand Slam final. The others were Federer in 2003 and Nadal in, I think it was 2017 in one of the slams. So he's one of only 3 in 25 years, which is astonishing. I mean, this guy is just amazing. What a player!
Yeah, but I can't help but feel that this entire doping mess is marred everything. It's been I don't like it. Leaves a bad taste in the mouth the way that they've handled it. the tennis association has handled it, and the way that it's been appealed and it's back and forth, and we don't even know if he gets to what happens later on. Now, when they make a final decision, will they retroactively strip him of the Australian? I mean, it's a mess the way that they've handled his doping case.
Yeah. I mean, from what I've read into it, that he was over by such a minuscule amount that he would have had no
Doesn't matter though,
performance
does it?
enhancing, even though he claims it was done by the masseur, or but I mean they all claim that. But the fact that
I was gonna say.
the fact that Mexican beef, the boxers all going and all this kind of
My
stuff.
favorite is Borriello. I got it through sex.
Oh yeah,
that is the greatest. Yeah. Like, my girlfriend uses a cream, and I had. I mean, it's just.
But
yeah,
I don't know how much performance enhancing was there for Borriello. It's the same with Mudryk. Like people.
No, but for me, it's
whoever
Mudryk, my homework.
Whoever doped Mudryk is the worst drug dealer in the history of drug dealers. Like, do you know what I mean? What is he feeding him? Like sugar cubes or something?
Yeah. No, but it's like, for me, it's like this dog ate my homework excuse.
Yeah, listen, their excuses are always they're always going to blame someone in their team. But what I'm saying is that they found that the levels were so minuscule over the limit that it would have had no performance enhancing effect.
Well, it does. He was over the level, and that's why they have
by
the
such a minuscule amount.
It doesn't matter if you're over the level. You're over the level, but it's still the way that they've handled it, and the way that they've still not decided it. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah. I think it's ridiculous. It leaves a bad taste, and I got to say, the Australian Open this year has been some of the most ridiculous things I think I've ever seen.
Did you see the journalists with the fans?
Yeah, that is.
But the Australian Open's been a clown show for years. I mean, the way they handled the Djokovic,
no, but the way that you stand there and mock fans and mock one of, if not the greatest tennis player.
Djokovic is the greatest Australian Open player of all time. The way that they,
you could argue he's the best tennis player of all time based on results alone, and the way that the mocking of him, the mocking of
but the way that they've treated him since COVID, full stop. Yeah. The country, they put him in a bloody prison, basically. They put him in prison.
No, it's just the way that they. No, they didn't. He just didn't go. But the way that they handled it, the way that they've behaved, it's been a shit show, this Australian Open. It's been very unprofessional. It's been lots of scandals, and I don't know. It's been a bit of a clown show, this tournament, and it's a bit sad the way that everything's been handled surrounding this doping case. The way that he could actually, from what I understand, he could be stripped of it, which makes everything just weird. The whole thing is just, I don't know. I didn't like this tournament at all, and the way that they've handled it, and it does leave a bad taste in my mouth. The way that he.
Well, at least there was nothing overriding, plaguing, overshadowing the word I want. Zverev, not like he's got two cases of beating his wife or his girlfriend. It's not.
That's what I mean. It's a shit show. It's a complete shit show. Like, it's just a shit show.
Yeah. Premface of the week. So I've got this from the Secret Scout on Twitter, who's quite a big football account on Twitter. So when Dango Uatara scored, he posted a picture of him celebrating with the caption "Dango Unchained."
I'm sorry for laughing, but are you?
No, I'm serious. I put the link in there. You can look. You can see for yourself.
Bloody hell! No, just no. That's yeah.
And then the other one is was this another Twitter user, Grace Robertson, saying that.
Can you explain this tweet after you read it? What does it mean? I've read it 7 times and I don't understand what it means.
I'd say Neymar is to Villa era Grealish what Erling Haaland is to Chris Wood, maybe. Similar style executed at a much higher level. I think they're trying to compare Neymar to Jack Grealish, basically, but trying to say he's maybe like a poor man's Jack Grealish, just like Chris Wood is a poor man's Erling Haaland. Maybe that's what they're trying to say. But anyway,
or is Grealish a poor man's Neymar? Or like
whatever they're saying, they should never ever compare Neymar to Jack Grealish.
it's one of the dumbest things I've ever read, and it's just completely roundabout way, and it makes no sense. And yeah, no, it's not as bad as Dango Unchained. That is wow. You
Yeah.
know,
Serie
delete
ASS of the
your
week.
account.
Serie ASS of the week. I'll take away Domenico Di Carlo, then I want to take away the other one.
The Ascoli dismissal of Di Carlo is just. So they lost on Friday night to Lucchese, and Pulcinelli revealed that he relieved rather Di Carlo of his duties on the Instagram on Instagram stories, saying, "Mr. Di Carlo fired. We apologize to our fans. Unworthy performance." Only late, and then later on, the club's official statement arrived. So you basically found out they were sacked on social media. It's just, oh my god! To me, the president's Instagram story is, yeah, it's very Serie A.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't beat this one,
No,
which again, I shouldn't be laughing at this just in the way that we shouldn't be laughing at the Dango Unchained, but just so everyone knows, we're mocking it, the ridiculousness of this. We're not obviously laughing along with it, but the mascot for Lazio versus Fiorentina at the front of the queue as well. So they're doing the anti-racism campaign in Italy, which they've been doing, which obviously does nothing, but they're doing the anti-racism campaign, and they have all printed on the mascots, and the players have on their t-shirts walking out, keep racism out. Only that the mascot, this young girl, has the t-shirt tucked in her shorts, and, and she's got the shorts very high up, a bit like Simon Cowell height on above her waist, and the out is being covered by the shorts. So all you can see as she walks out onto the pitch, and because she's at the front, the cameras are honing in on her. So this is being publicised all around the world. Is you're just seeing the girl with a t-shirt that says "Keep Racism" on. And how, I mean, it's just unbelievable. You couldn't make this stuff up. I mean, it's like, is there nobody there that sees this and realizes that, and what makes it better is it's Lazio playing. It's a Lazio game at the Stadio Olimpico. Lazio, the team that are most associated with right wing and fascism and racism. It's a Lazio game doing an anti-racism campaign, and they've got a girl coming out, a young girl with "Keep Racism" on a t-shirt. I mean, it's just
I just
unbelievable.
couldn't stop laughing. It's one of those things where, when this girl graduates, when she gets married, like, that, like, that's gonna be a photo that her friends use, because the look on her face, she looks so miserable too.
Yeah.
Like, it's it's just, yeah,
Why are these campaigns all such a failure? Every single
because they
one,
don't do it properly,
every
Carlo.
single one is
Because they don't
disaster.
do it
If it isn't the
properly.
one painting the ape
Yeah, the
pictures,
monk.
or if it
I
isn't,
feel bad for the artist
or the
there because
hashtag "Don't call me gypsy," or when they do some Vlahovic, "Don't call me gypsy," and then there's this, "Keep racism." I mean, it's just
no, the monkeys thing, I feel bad for the artist, because that's literally what he does. He paints monkeys in human situations. That's literally his thing. So he want, like, that's his overall thing, that we all come from apes, and we share DNA with 99% with chimpanzees. Like, that is literally his thing. So I felt bad for him. But again, the reason that was turned out to be a disaster, just like don't call me gypsy, and this thing is, they don't do it properly.
no, they
They
can't
don't.
execute.
They can't
They can't.
execute it,
No,
and so it just becomes a
no.
farce. And that's why we get these, like, memes, you know
Yeah.
and the way that they and also the way that they present these things on the screen, like
Mm.
the fact that they use a design where the text is, like, it rolls up instead of all of it showing at once.
Yeah.
So that's why when people screenshot it, it says "Keep Racism," and do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, it's just that the
The
execution is bad,
execute. No, yeah, they are.
and that's why it becomes a comedy.
They
And it
are.
does
They're,
become a comedy.
yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah, they're the worst executioners since the guy from Game of Thrones who he went to the one that had his dick chopped off. I've forgotten his name, but he went to chop someone's head off, and it was just the worst execution ever. Like he like barely like made a little dent in the guy's neck, and then he was like did about 10 chops of it, and he still couldn't chop his head off, and then someone else had to come along and do it for him.
That's so horrible.
And this is a week after Penis Gate as well.
Yeah, I know.
To stay with the theme of cocks.
Yeah, but Penis Gate will never stop being funny. Penis Gate will never stop being funny. Like Juan Bernabe, the Bernabe, like what's his name? It's never going to stop being funny. That will never stop being funny. And Lotito's comments as well. Like, no.
Unbelievable. Okay, let's leave it at that. So we will be back this week. We have an interview coming up this week, which you will find out about soon. And then we have a Q&A, and we'll do the Champions League
Thursday
review as well. So there's some extra stuff for you this week. So have a great week, everyone. Ciao, ciao.